Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions with DrShiny. This is a monthly tarot reading for Sagittarius for the month of April. Thank you for joining me. And this is a general reading, so this is not going to, perfectly apply to everybody. But if you are a subscriber to the channel, I would be very happy to draw a couple of cards specifically for you if you just leave me a request in the comment section. So let's go ahead and get to your reading for my Sagittarius friends. Okay. Interesting. A lot of reverses. Wow. Okay. So I consider it somewhat meaningful here that you only have two upright cards, and a lot of times this can mean that your perspective is possibly like a little bit backwards, or you're being a little resistant to a situation, thinking that it's not working the way that you want it to when it actually really is. So there can be a somewhat of a distortion going on here. And it also very much is meaningful that of the cards that are upright, the one that one of them is this Five of Cups, where there are three cups that are turned upside down and there is two cups that are turned upright. So it's kind of funny that of the two cards that are upright, it has two upright cups and the rest are upside down. And we'll get to the meaning of that in a minute, but very cohesive message. And when I see these kind of synchronicities and things like that, it kind of helps the channel come through a little bit clearer. Now, what we have for your situation, your current situation here, is the Ace of Cups in the reverse. So this represents kind of like, being resistant to a new emotion or way of or feeling, right? So that this can be sometimes something that you perceive as a negative emotion, but you have to realize that the negative emotions are the other half of a positive emotion. And unless you are able to well, one of my favorite sayings is that you can't increase your capacity to know pleasure without also increasing your capacity to know pain. So what that means is that if you're constantly trying to prevent yourself from feeling sadness or anger or all these other different kinds of what you might think of as negative emotions, then it conversely will inhibit your ability to appreciate the positive side of those emotions. So you have to get to a point to where you're not absolutely afraid of going through the hardships, but you take them as part of a whole unified existence, which includes all of that and not just the good points. To strive for all white and no black, and all good and no bad, is to strive to be unconscious. Consciousness is the dynamic interplay between these dualisms or opposites. So part of it is understanding that you have to experience some different things that are unpredictable and maintain an open sense with reality around you. So crossing you is this Queen of Cups in the reverse. So this could be why you're a little resistant to these emotions, because this represents normally having a little bit of a good command over your emotions or being able to work through your emotions. But in this reverse position, this is kind of, it's getting the best of you a little bit. Your head's above water a little bit, or below water, sorry. So your emotions have been kind of bubbling up and getting out of control to a little, to some extent. And this can be, this can cause you to sort of shut down emotionally and not be open to new emotional experiences because you feel like you're a little stretched thin, or that you have a limited ability to take on more or lower emotional capacity. But what the Queen of Cups is a master of is accepting these emotions but not clinging to them, not necessarily feeling like she has to hang on to these feelings, but she does experience and she's open to them and she feels them and she allows them to resolve. So by sort of avoiding or having an avoidance mentality of not going through difficult or unpleasant things, sometimes you can make it all the more difficult to get through it, because suffering is essentially at its core a resistance to the way things are. So the way things are is the only constant is change. Things are going to be constantly morphing throughout your life, and things are going to change. Your attitude is going to change. Your outlook is going to change. So if you're constantly resisting that, it's going to cause you a feeling of suffering or of negative emotions. So the way to deal with it is to experience those negative emotions in smaller doses, so that they don't sort of build up and become these big things that outburst, and then you can't deal with them. Okay, so what you're moving away from is the star in the reverse, which is a good thing. This means that you are moving away from not having a lot of faith in how things are working out. You're moving into a mindset of being a little bit more open to whatever happens, or to thinking that there is this grander plan at play, and that you don't have to necessarily control the situation. And that's probably what you're going through right now in this situation, is trying to teach you how to do that, how to move out of that need to control things. What you're moving toward is this King of Coins in the reverse. So not as good of a direction to be headed, because the King of Coins, he's a financial master. He's really good at investing and getting people to work toward a common material or financial goal. And he's good at that, but this is in the reverse, so it's it can be a little bit, overbearing, or not as good at doing that, not as good at controlling the situation. So it could be that there's a little bit of a catch-22 going on here, that perhaps you were better at this in the past, you were good at investing and all that, but being able to sort of take the reins a little bit looser and allow things to turn out not perfectly all the time inhibits your ability a little bit to be that King of Coins energy. So the question is that okay? And I think it is. You don't have to be perfect at everything, but it's also, the situation is going to ask you what's really important. Is having everything working well in the material really important, or is it a situation where what good is it a man to gain the world and lose his soul? I think that's probably kind of what it is for your situation here. So your foundation card we briefly touched on, but to revisit this, foundation represents what is the basis of this whole lesson? What is the what's going on in the subconscious, and what is the universe trying to teach you through this situation? And in this case, it's the Five of Cups, which means that you have a tendency to kind of not look at the good parts of a situation where there's a failure or where some cups are spilled over. You have a tendency to focus more strongly on the negative aspects of a situation than on the positive aspects, which, yes, it does kind of over time, that mentality will lead you to organizing your life in such a way that there are more positive aspects, but that's only a temporary situation, because all of that will eventually come crashing down, and if you have more, you have more to lose, right? So there is a strength that is found in being able to look at the positive aspects of any situation, no matter how dire it looks, or if it looks like it's not a good thing. So being careful how resistant you are to the negative side of life can lead you to a greater appreciation of that positive. Okay, so your crowning thoughts, or what's on your conscious mind, is this Queen of Wands in the reverse. So this is being a little bit resistant to having more of a cultivating or gardening or nurturing environment or attitude. So the Queen of Wands, she's a really, wands represent action, but the Queen of Wands puts action into self-growth and into allowing things to become or to develop on their own, rather than forcing them in the way that the King of Coins might. And you have a lot of queens and kings in your reading as well. I'm always looking for these commonalities. And what's interesting is that you have one of these court cards, or one of the kings and queens for each of the different suits. So you've got, the Queen of Cups, the Queen of Wands, the King of Coins, and the King of Swords. So you've got a lot of intense energy about you in all of these directions, but the way they play together, well, first of all of them are in the reverse, and I take that to mean that you can't really achieve all of these things. You might be trying to, but you can't really do one of these things without stepping on the other one's toes, because they all have these specialities. And while the magician does unify all of these different energies, he does so in a way that is free from desire, and he is kind of a creature of just raw existence in the present moment. So he's not seeking after any one of these types of ways of being, but instead he is able to utilize all four of them by not resisting any particular side of growth or development. Okay, so the Queen of Wands, there is a resistance to sort of like plant seeds and to let things happen. So this can be kind of like, a need for instant gratification, or for seeing results immediately, instead of having faith that going a short distance the wrong way can allow you to return a long distance correctly, right? That may be a little bit complicated word gymnastics there, but what that is to say is that things that pay off immediately are not always the things that pay off the most in the long run. Sometimes it's better to take sacrifices in the short term and recognize that you're contributing to your growth or development in a longer time scale. Okay, so advice for the current situation is the King of Swords in the reverse. And this can mean you may feel as though you have things figured out, that you know the right way to be and all this, but it can be a little bit of overconfidence. You can be trying to sort of cheat your way through the situations that you're going through, instead of allowing things to, or allowing the boundaries that present themselves to guide you in a more natural way. You may think that you can sort of cheat and get around things. Like maybe you can use the stock market to become wealthy instead of actually putting in the work, or something like that. I mean, that's a random example, but the King of Swords tends to be a little bit manipulative and feels like he can use whatever mental faculties he has to figure out his advantages and to leverage those advantages on other people. So, on the one hand, you can do this. This is in your advice card. So you can do this. You can manipulate people to some extent, and the consequences for that are not necessarily the end of the world. But on the other hand, you can put a little bit more of an honest effort into this. And what I'm seeing with this is this reading is extremely open-ended, and very rarely do I get readings that are very open-ended like this. Usually it's a little bit more specific, but the idea here is that you have a lot of power in this situation to define yourself, to be able to choose a direction. So not a lot is really set in stone for you here, and there is a tremendous ability for you to do whatever you want. And I think that comes from, you've had a good strategy thus far, but that strategy has led you and culminated in this opportunity for you to now utilize all of your skills and everything that you've done to be able to accomplish pretty much anything you want. So really it's about selecting what you want, or doing a little bit of introspection and figuring out what direction you want to go. So your environment is this nine of coins, knight of coins, sorry, not the nine, the knight of coins in the reverse. And this is, somebody is a little bit open to. So the Knight of Coins in the upright is a very stubborn individual, but in the upside down or reverse position, there's a little bit more of an openness and a refusal to really be stuck in a dogmatic way of thinking. So this probably contributes to your ability to sort of choose whatever path you want here, because somebody in your environment is very open to allowing you to kind of like call the shots or control the reins. This can also just mean that your environment, maybe not necessarily a person, but your environment is very open to this. So there's some abundance, or you're getting more help from the situations around you than normal, which are allowing you some flexibility to do the things that you want to do. You might have some time to work on some project that is a passion project, something that you have wanted to accomplish but haven't had the time to do. Maybe the time is opened up for you now. So there's less inflexibility around you, which is opening you up to being able to choose some direction. Now, your Fear's card is the Nine of Swords in the reverse. And, this is a very odd interaction between this card and being in the Fear's position, because the Nine of Swords really means fear, or more specifically, anxiety. And in the upright or in the reverse position, this would indicate a recovery from anxiety and understanding that your mind is basically playing tricks on itself whenever you're feeling this type of anxiety. But this being in the Fears card, it's like, okay, so you're afraid of not being afraid. So that doesn't really make sense, right? So in situations like that, there's generally some other type of a deeper meaning to this. And the way that I'm taking it is that you don't want to be in a place where you are very subject to your mental health, affecting you or getting the best of you. There is a kind of a need for you to externalize what's going on in your head, and to have somebody reassure you, or to feel as though you are doing the right thing or going in a particular direction that is worthy of your attention. That can be a problem for you in a situation like this, where the universe is asking you, what do you want to do, right? Because you're liable to become a pawn in someone else's destiny, rather than utilizing your own ability to choose and your own free will. So don't be too afraid of getting in a situation where you don't like where you've got, or you don't like where you've decided to go, because you can always make a choice to go somewhere else, So and also, having that fear of like committing to something can very much prevent you from ever achieving anything. So, commitment is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, if it is a horrible thing or a failure, you're stuck with it. But on the other hand, maybe you're not. Maybe it's just about knowing when things are not going to serve you, or knowing when you're just trying to give up too easily, right? Your overall message, or your overall outcome here, is this Hermit. And this goes back to what I was saying this entire time, which is you're going to have to take some time to be introspective and to separate yourself from the expectations of others. And instead of worrying about what other people want you to do, or what other people's advice is for the direction you should take, you have to be able to look inwardly and figure out what is going to make you satisfied, what is going to pay off in the long run, what are you going to not regret when you're lying on your deathbed, right? So one of these things, one of these choices coalesces with you and your environment very much. Now, I suspect that magician type of energy that I was talking about is exactly what you have in store, which is a tremendous power of manifestation and being able to accomplish really great things. But to be able to achieve that, you have to be able to separate yourself from a strong desire to be any one type of way, or to think that there is a right way to do things. So you may have a little bit of a hard time figuring that out, or making that sort of internal realization. But having some alone time, some meditation, and introspective time is the way that you get there. So it does look like you're in a little bit of a transitional phase here, and that this isn't really telling you that there's one right way to be, but instead it's asking you to sort of find your own path and your own inner self-confidence to make your dreams a reality. So that's about it for April's reading for Sagittarius. A little bit more open-ended, but like I said, if you would like some more specific advice that's tailored to you, if you subscribe to the channel, I would be very happy to draw some additional cards just for you. And just request that in the comments. And also, let me know what you thought about the reading, if you liked it or didn't like it, and if it resonated. And that'll about do it for this month. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.